Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our weekly shirim on the Sefer Zohar Kadosh, and we're starting off with Tafshin Pehei in Parshas Noach. And we know already from the Ramchal and from all of the tzaddikim and what we've learned last year in the Sefer Zohar that the Sefer Zohar is very makusher to the Teva of Noach. That the Sefer Zohar is that place that the Jewish mind and heart and even body can run to when there is intensity or difficulty or overwhelmingness on the outside. When the flood waters rise and there's an overwhelmingness of the mind and the spirit, and it's difficult to take that deep breath that is necessary to rebalance oneself, and the outside is no longer providing the necessary recipe needed to create spiritual functioning. The Zohar HaKadosh, the Teva of Noach, the Ma'ara of Rashbi, opens itself up and it creates a place for those who have no place. It creates a hiding place, a place of incubation where a person can rest until the storm passes. But it's not just resting until the storm passes and just waiting. It's rather cultivating a mindset of that which will take place after the storm, that which will take place in the future. The Zohar HaKadosh is a technology, as the Ramchal points out, that draws the light of the future into the present, and it gives us the ability to microdose redemption. Any moment that a person finds themselves within the comfort of the Zohar Ta'asa L'Teva, that a person creates that Zohar, that opening where the sunlight of redemption can emerge into the mind and into the flood of one's experience. So it's specifically in that place that a person is going to begin to taste an actual taste of redemption itself, as the Zohar Kadosh spends so much time describing, and as the Medrash Tanchuma says in Parshas Noach itself, that there's Olam Haba, there's the world that's going to arrive in the future orientation of reward that we anticipate. And then there's also Alma Da'asi, Alma Da'asi Tadir. It's the world that is perpetually emerging into one's mind. It's the river that never stops flowing from Gan Eden. La'asid Lavo is the world of Bina, where there's going to be a full revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity, where all difficulty is going to be transformed to be revealed to be the place of Chaya Chaim. But when we don't have access to Bina, and we can't draw down the full Moichin from Bina, what we draw Moichin down from, nevertheless, is Tvuna, the lower part of Bina, the Malchus of Bina. And Tvuna, as the Arizal points out, is referred to as Alma Da'asi. That's the element of Moichin that are always flowing forth into the person's mind. And so the Sefer Zohar is there to allow us to enter into the mikvah of the Zohar HaKadosh, to dip into the Tahara, to Tahara Samayim, to remember that place of Mayim B'Mayim, prior to the separation, prior to the Rakia, prior to the Tzimtzum. And in that place, we can be Mamtik Zain Alts, and we can draw out illumination of redemption to irrigate the dry land of this world. And so Be'ezras Hashem, as we start off the Zohar HaKadosh for Tafshin Pehei of Teishnas Pnimius Halev, which is rooted in the Zohar. The Zohar is the Lev. It's the Lev Ha'elyon of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that's Meskala specifically within the Eish of Bina, that it should be a year of opening up the innermost point of our hearts so that we can uncover the secret of redemption. Because we know that Leis Machshava Tvisa Beklal. We know that no mind is capable of grasping the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Zohar HaKadosh states that even though Leis Machshava Tvisa Beklal, even though no Machshava, no thought, no intellectual grasp of Chachma can grasp the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Aval nitvasu itvasu berusa deliba. It can be grasped in the desire of the heart. The desire of the heart, the nakuda of the keser within bina, or the bina within keser, is the element of the shar hanun, and in that place there seems to be a sense that even though the mind can't grasp the emotional inner point of the heart, the bina itself has the ability of grasping the essence. But thankfully for our tzaddikim, we know that even if the Zohar Kadosh implies that the heart itself can grasp the essence of God, we know that it doesn't actually mean the essence of God, God forbid, because nothing can grasp the essence of God. Only God can grasp the essence of God. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechuyev HaMetzias. Everything else is Efshari HaMetzias and only contingent and possible, and therefore we're limited in our essence, and we can't grasp the essence. And if we were to lay claim to grasping the essence, then we would be liable to falling sway into that tendency to iconize that which we can't grasp, to make an idol, to make a measurable thing that I can bow down to, rather than being caught up within the unknowing wonder of all things. So we have to always ensure that if we see in the Zohar Kadosh that even though the mind can't grasp anything at all, nevertheless the innermost point of the heart perhaps can grasp. Nevertheless, we understand that the innermost point of the heart grasping something doesn't mean it's actually grasping. It just means that it gives us the capacity to become more aware of that which we can't grasp. Where that which we can't grasp, that light which remains outside of the purview of human consciousness or processing or understandability, those traumas that exceed the mind's capacity to process them in this worldly functioning, what Rabbi Nachman refers to as those makifim, those surrounding lights that are so intense that they cannot be processed ba'ofen pnimi, in a processed-oriented way of the kalim that we have to grapple with existence, and therefore it's only in the future that those makifim come back down. So when the innermost point of the heart is capable of grasping the inner light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it just means that we're grasping a certain makif, we're grasping something that we didn't yet know, but now we know that we don't know it, and that makif gets drawn down into becoming a panimi, which is the tachlis of all things, to draw the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though it's ungraspable, into the kalim of the mind and the heart, and in spite of the fact that the mind and the heart cannot grasp them, nevertheless to continue trying. And in that continued trying of trying to draw down that which cannot be drawn down, as we're going to see in this week's Zohar Kadosh, which is really just reflective of the entirety of the Zohar Kadosh, we taste something even more profound. We taste the impossibility of taste. We taste that which cannot be tasted, yet nevertheless we taste it within the framework of our reception of the impossibility of tasting it. And in that recognition and acceptance of the impossibility and the continued desire to reach that which we can't reach, we encounter the deepest level of experience, which is the innermost point of the heart, the yichud of the moyach and the leiv, which even though it can't reach the essence, nevertheless it touches something impossibly big. It touches something, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It can't be grasped, but it's accessed by the chords of the Jewish heart. And that's what we're going to see in the Zohar HaKadosh, B'derech Klal, and we're going to see it in this week's Zohar as well. This week's Zohar that we're going to look at, it's on Daf Samach Hey in Parshas Noach, and it's found in Parshas Pekudei also. It's brought down by the Arizal in Parak Hey of Shar Igulim V'Yoshar. It's brought down by the Ramak in Tzachtzachos in Shar Tzachtzachos. It's brought down by the Ramchal in his Biur on Arimas Yad Beitzlusa. It has a full and fundamental Biur from the Ahel Or, from the Gra. It has a profound explanation from the Kamarna, from the Zohar Chai, from the Balasulam, from all of the Meforshim, from the Admori Chabad, for the Rashash. This mimer in the Zohar becomes a fundamental expression of what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Pnimius HaTorah are coming to teach a person. Rabbi Nachman in Torah Chaf Daled also speaks out this particular element of the Zohar HaKadosh. The Ramchal writes that because this was such a Heilige Hasaga that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wanted to draw down to the Chavraya, he wanted the world to be irrigated by this ascendant flow of the divine secrets that float forth from Gan Eden of the mind into the heart that grows tired in this world. Rabbi Shimon wasn't able to reveal it fundamentally. He couldn't reveal by way of Torah. He had to reveal by way of Tefillah. The Ramchal writes that because it's such a lofty place, Rabbi Shimon had to be mahapich the Torah into a Tefillah, and as we know from Rabbeinu, that's the Iker Zach. It's not, oh, we can't say the Torah and therefore we have to say it as a Tefillah, but rather the Torah is so high that it could only be expressed as a Tefillah in the secret of Likutei Tefillos, in the secret of Tehillim, in the secret of Megillas Esther, in the secret of Kisvu Lachem Shira Hazos, where the Torah itself opens up and it shifts from a mind orientation of awareness and knowledge, and it becomes something prayerful, which is built upon deficiency, built upon what I can't grasp. And because of the lofty nature of this teaching, we're going to see that it's really going to be uttered by way of a prayer. And that's what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and daven this nakuda. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says, Arimas yadai betzlusin le'ela. I raise my hands above. Rabbi Shimon raises his hands above. The hands are the engagement with this world, the yadayim, the bezeas apecha tochalechem, the klala of the yadayim that takes place after Adam Arishon partaking in the chait of the Eitz Hadas and the degradation of human experience. What we lose is our yadayim. We lose our ability to elevate our hands up to Shemayim, and now we have the necessity of lowering our hands to do the work that was meant to be carried out by the Nachash. When Mashiach Tzidkenu, which is the tikkun to the Nachash, as they share the same gematria, and it emerges from within that concealment. When Mashiach Tzidkenu arrives, Be'ezras Hashem, the Ma'aseh Yad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be Neskala. The two hands of Mashiach are Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the left hand, and Mashiach ben David, which is the right hand, and both of them are oriented towards the center, which is the secret of Moshe Emes, the Sairasai Emes, and raising the hands back up to the mind of Su'u Yidechem Kodesh, Baruch Hu Es Hashem. Until that time of Mashiach coming, the hands are lowered, the hands get dirty, the hands get broken, Yadayim Aleim Dam, the hands are filled with blood, and the hands are filled with weapons, and the hands are filled with difficulty, and the hands are in a mournful position, and the hands are broken and beaten, and the hands are struggling. And in order to break free from the struggling hands, Rabbi Nachman teaches us the secret of clapping, where we take the two separations of the hands and we reveal the Yad Ramah that comes out from both of them, and the secret of Koyach Ma'asav Higad Yamul L'Teis Lahem Nachlas Goyim, that each hand is Yud Dalid, it has 14 elements to it. Each finger, other than the thumb, has 3 elements to it, and the thumb has 2, so it's 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14, which is the gematria of Yad. And when you take Yad and Yad, you have Koyach, and when we dance and when we clap, we draw down the air of Eretz Yisrael to be mamtik all of the dinim. But that's only the way of picking the hands out of exile. But as the hands continue to be in exile, they remain lowered. The sign of redemption is the yadayim betzlusa, is raising one's hands up above, realizing that my hands bear no responsibility in this world because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been poyel everything, and the maisim of my hands, that the actions of our hands are carried out by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this revelation of the raising of the hands, which is the secret of the handless beggar and the secret of retrieving the arrow even after it's been shot and transforming the poison itself into the redemption itself and the human condition into the very site of where Mashiach Tzidkenu arrives. So the raising of the hands represents a certain orientation towards the future where a person is able to be mavatal themselves completely and say, I actually don't have to do anything at all. I put my hands up in an act of surrender and I say, Rabbeinu Shalom, I recognize that be'emes, these hands don't need to do anything but to serve you. Biyad hanaviyah madama. The hands are meant to be used for imaginative purposes, to be mahapich the yad itself into its tefillin shel yad and its tefillin shel rosh, which is mazachich, the madama should be adayim, and the imagination of the mind, the imagination of the body, and the imagination of the mind, and they're meant to be elevated and ascendant. They're meant to be raised up in the secret of Rabbi Shimon's hands, which are raised up in tefillah. And nowadays we find ourselves with our hands bloodied and our hands broken and our hands lowered. That's only the exilic condition. But Rabbi Shimon is awakening us to the secret of Amar Rabbi Shimon, Arimas Yadai Betzlusa Le'ela. I raise my hands up in prayer. I'm no longer trying to understand. I come to a place of not knowing whatsoever, and I relinquish any attempt at control. I realize that all of the maisim of my hands are just playthings anyway, and that I've been playing with a wooden sword all along, so I might as well just raise my hands up with surrender to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm mevatel my avodah. And that's what Rabbi Shimon is opening us up to. Amar Rabbi Shimon, Arimas Yada B'tzlusin. I raise my hands in prayer, La'ela, above. Dekad reusa iloya la'ela kaima al hahu reusa delo isyada veloy itvis klal la'almin. That Rabbi Shimon is now introducing us to two elements. There's the innermost point of desire that we feel, the highest point of the self, the innermost point of the heart, to the arach anpin of the mind that wants to run upwards with desire towards that place of infinitude, towards that place of emuna yeshera, to that place of knowing everything is okay and of grasping some element of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a real way and grasping certainty. When I uncover that desire and that desire runs forward to the highest place imaginable, when the reusa of my heart is opened up and it rises above, and it yearns to go to the highest place imaginable, what it encounters, kaima al hahu reusa delo isyada veloy itvis klal almin. What it encounters, rather than finding that which it so desperately desires, which is certainty, it uncovers the secret of the reusa deloy isyada veloy itvis klal almin. The desire that comes from below to above reaches a point of the unknowable desire of above that cannot be known, it cannot be grasped, and it's not only a result of the exilic condition of not being able to grasp it, but lo itvis klal la'almin, it will never be grasped. Meaning to say, we encounter the ratzon of arach anpin within ourselves, the undying desire to yearn from a place of the bina of the heart upwards with an ish kodesh to behold and uncover the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light. And what we come to encounter is the fact that I can't grasp it, and it's something that won't be grasped. When Arich Anpin tries to grasp Atik, it tries to grasp the Reshad Loas Yada, that which can't be known, that part of human consciousness that acknowledges the limit point at where my mind struggles to comprehend anything whatsoever, especially when it comes to the terms of understanding the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, this place of Reshad Loas Yada that the mind can't grasp is not Chvoidu Ba'atzmo, God forbid. Chvoidu Ba'atzmo Kavyachal is mislabish in that place, and the secret of the Hamshacha of the Or Ein Sof, and to be mislabish within the Reshad Loas Yada, as the Kamarna Rebbe points out so powerfully in Zohar Chai. But nevertheless, that Reshad Lo Asyada, that Reusa de Itfis, that place that the mind struggles to gain a footing there, and it comes to terms with the impossibility of grasping anything, we're not talking, the Gram makes very clear, we're not talking about the infinite light, Chas v'shalom. We're talking about Reshad Lo Asyada, which can contain the name or Ein Sof within it, because in relationship to the lower level of our desire and our graspability, it's considered as if it's unknown. But that level of unknowability is just waiting to become known to reveal a higher level of unknowability, which will reveal a higher level. And therefore, even when we're talking about the highest levels imaginable, and we're talking about the paradox of grasping by way of not grasping, and holding by way of not holding, and coming to terms with the limit of what I can know, and specifically in coming to terms with the limit, knowing something, we're never talking about the absolute light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, when we imply that there's a certain graspability there. We don't have to be concerned that, oh no, we're grasping the essence. We're never grasping the essence. Any grasp is always there to reveal that which can't be grasped, and that is perpetually ungraspable, because kedushasi lamala mikdusha seichem. And even though the machshava can't be toifesid, and there's an implication that the ru'usa deliba can be toifesid, even that we know can't be toifesid. It's le nitfas klal la'almin. Reisha desasim yasir la'ela. There's a concealed head above that cannot be grasped. And then this nikuda of desire that was yearning to grasp, that which can't be grasped, becomes the highest level of our consciousness. It becomes the highest level of our point of contact with the infinite, meaning to say that point where we come to terms with the fact that our desire and our innermost desire can yearn but not reach. It's at that point that we develop the crown of our own selves, which is the undying desire to run upwards in spite of the fact that we can't reach there. The hahu reisha afik maida afik velo yoda v'nahir maida nahir kula b'stimu. But through the act of yearning, through the act of chasing, through the act of that undying desire to draw closer to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which offers the promise of the Nechama, Zayinachamenu me'oitzev yadenu. This will heal us from the pain of the blood on the hands. This will heal us from the pain of the broken hands, of the lost hands. When a person wants to uncover that light, even though I can't reach it, as Rabbi Nachman says, nevertheless, by not reaching it, I draw down a certain illumination from that unreachable place that now gets expressed within my areas of graspability, but I experience them as reminders of the ungraspability of all things, and they become pockets of wonder that remind me that the ignorance and the not knowing and all of those things, in spite of the fact that they're difficult, nevertheless, they're indicative and representative of the truest and the highest level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. So that unknowability, that impossibility of grasping the light of Reisha Loas Yada, it's not a failed mission, but rather it draws down a certain ha'ara into the realm of knowability, even though it remains unknowable. Vahahu Reisha, and that unknowable head, afik maida afik, it expresses that which it expresses. Something comes out of it. Velo Yada, and we don't know what it is. V'nahir maida nahir, it shines what it shines, but kulo bestimu, but nevertheless, in spite of the fact that it shines, it remains caught up in concealment, meaning to say we have intimations of the unknowability of Reishad Loas Yada, that even though we can't grasp it, by way of running after it with desire and Mesiras Nefesh of Arach Anpin, which is the highest level of the graspable self, we draw down remnants of that life, remainders of that light that remains beyond grasp, and it melts into our experience, and it brings us into this real paradoxical space that we all know really, really well, that stage of afik mada afik v'lo yada. Right? Something takes place, but I don't know. In the end of the day, I don't know what took place. Nahir my denahir, something shines, but kulo bestimu. Nevertheless, it still remains concealed. We all know this experience. Zakte Heligazaya, ru'u de machshava ilo lemirda fabasre ulis nahare mine chadprisu ispars. That the nature of the desire of thought, the Arach Anpin, that part of ourselves which yearns upwards out of the undying desire to know that there is a fundamental goodness that remains hidden away and stored, Marav Tufcha Sher Tzafant L'Reyecha, in the secret of Lufum Sara Agra, that place of Oilam Haba, that place of Marav Tuv, that goodness, that Or Ki Tov, even though it remains hidden and that Or Ein Sof is hidden, nevertheless, the Re'usa de Machshava Ilo Lemir da Fabasre, the desire of the ascendant thought, meaning Arach Anpin, the highest point of my conscious self, it has an undying desire of chasing after it, even though it knows that it can't grasp it. It has an undying chase, and we saw already that this chase reveals that which it's chasing after, even though it can't grasp that which it's chasing after. But the acknowledgement of the ungraspability of that thing that I'm chasing allows the light of that thing I'm chasing to express itself in the process of the chase itself. And even though the mind desires to run after it, ulisnahare mine, and what it does, what it encounters, it wants to be illuminated by that. And in the attempt to be illuminated by that lofty light, what happens is chad prisu is paris. There is a separation, there is a partition, there is a veil, there is that limit point, the void that separates my desire and the thing that I desire, and the ungraspability of the desired thing through the act of desire. There is a prisu that is isparis, there is a partition that becomes present in the place of that running and returning, that trying to grasp and not grasping. After a while, through the friction of the self and its radical attempt to ascend and then descend and then ascend nevertheless with newfound strength, it creates a prisud isparis, it creates a partition. But this partition and this veil is not representative only of the separation. The separation is there naturally because we can't grasp the infinite. But this separation becomes a way of connection by way of separation. It becomes an active expression of concealment, which we know is the giloy of the tzimtzum tzimtzum, and when it's an active expression of concealment, then the experience of concealment is no longer just concealed, but rather it's an active engagement with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And from that prisu, from that mesach, that pargod, that separation that emerges in the human reflection on the impossibility of grasp, umigoi hahu prisu diridufe dehahi machshava ilah, and it's specifically through this prisu, this separation, where the mind is perpetually running and chasing after that which it can't grasp, mati veloy mati. There's an experience of touching and not touching at the same time. Like we said, Arachanpen reaches beyond itself and reaches into the infinite, and in spite of the fact that it can't touch the infinite, nevertheless, in the acknowledgement that it can't touch the infinite, it is in fact encountering what it means to touch the infinite by way of not touching it. And in that experience of concealment, one experiences, in truth, the highest level of revelation, which is the Achen Ata Kel Mistater, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're mitzamsim yourself. And then we come to find the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the tzimtzum, in the concealment itself. And from within that prisu de machshava, that blockage in the mind, we're mati v'loy mati, running above it and below it, adhahu prisa nohir mad nohir, to the degree that that prisu, that separation, begins to shine what it shines. And because we're dealing with the separation that separates the ungraspable light of the infinite and the graspability of the nekuda of Arachanpen in the mind, we're no longer talking about the infinite light that is not grasped. We're talking about the ungraspability that takes shape through the prisu, through this mechitza, through this separation and the partition and that barrier that rests between that which is known and that which is not known. It becomes more graspable because now we're talking with a secondary level. And this prisu is nahir mad nahir. It shines what it shines, and nevertheless, it's not kula bestimu as it was before, when it was the shine of the infinite light, which remains absent afterwards. But over here, because we're dealing with something graspable, there is a certain remnant and a shine and a graspability of that which can't be grasped, which puts us into the place of emuna, bittul, and simcha. Ihu machshava ilah nahir benihura, and that ascendant thought that is now encountering the prisu and becoming aware of what it can't become aware of in the desire of Arachanpen and the pneumius of the bina of the heart, it shines what it shines. Sasim de lo yada, it's still concealed and unknown, but it shines what it shines. Vahahu machshava lo yada, and nevertheless that machshava that a person is continuously trying to grasp and trying to grasp the ungraspability of it, nevertheless it will never settle into a state of lo yada. It will never be fully unknown, because there will always be the perpetual desire to know it and then come to unknow it. But it will never be a full relinquishment of the desire to know, because that would take away from the desire to continue to try and know, which brings about the tainug of this experience of the sha'ashum, of the tzachtzachos, as we're going to see. And therefore, it's a thought that is always perpetually going to try and be known, but always forced to reveal that it's not known. Kedein batash hai nehiru de machshava de lo isyada benehiru de prisa de kaima de nahir mimad lo yada velo isyada velo iskalian. And when that ascendant light of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is not grasped at all, the Reishad Lo Yada, the Atik Yomin, that is the Malchus, the Ein Sof Kavyachol, that goes all the way up, that which the mind can't fully grasp. When that ungraspability encounters, there's the Betishu. Betishu is a collision between desire and a mania that prevents desire from being actualized, and specifically from within that collision, there's an emergence of a sparking and a friction that gives birth to a newfound level of unity, as the Heiliger of Menachem Mendel of Shklov points out, that this language of Batash, in spite of the fact that it implies a collision and a difficulty, nevertheless, it's Rosh Tevos, Bitachon, Tova, and Simcha. It's trust in goodness and joy that comes about from the belief that the unity will emerge. So when this impossible space of the unknown encounters this new light of the ungraspable thought that expresses itself in this parsa, the kaima, now it encounters this partition that now exists in the mind, that is born out of the perpetual friction of trying to climb and fall, and now there's a denahir mimad lo yada, and it's a shine of that which can't be known, meaning it's a reflection of those sparks of unknowability that melt and fall into the space of knowability, velo isyada velo isgalia, and that place that can't be known and can't be revealed. And when there's this collision, kaden da nuhura de machshava de lo isyada batash b'nehiru de prisu, when there's a collision between the unknowable thought and the partition, and the thought of the partition that's spread out, v'naharin kechada, and there's an illumination between unknowability and knowability, and the unknowability and knowability, and knowing and not knowing, and knowing and not knowing, and the tachlis yadiyah shalei neda, and lo yodea klum, lo yodea klum, lo yodea klum. At that point, from that betishu of that which can't be grasped, and the perpetually undying desire to grasp that which can't be grasped, and the drawing down of the ungraspability of that which can't be grasped into the graspability of knowing what I can't grasp, there's an illumination that comes as one, v'is avidu teisha hechalim. And this collision course, this friction eventually gives shape to some expression of the beginning of space. This is the process of the tzimtzum, of the running and the returning, that engraves a space by drawing and erasing, cutting through and making more of a space to the degree that it becomes a chakika. It begins to engrave a shape in the air. This running and returning and the friction begins to create potential spaces that are not yet spaces, which are referred to as the Tesha Hechalin, the 9 chambers. 9 chambers are simply the framework of all things. Everything is composed of a top, a middle, and a bottom. So there are 3 aspects to each thing: where it comes from, what it is, and where it is going to. The point of origin, its purpose, its usage, and its purpose. The Rosh, the Toch, and the Sof. The head, the middle, and the bottom. Yamin, small, and Emsa. Each thing is contained in 3: right, middle, and center. And each one of those compartments also contains within itself a subset of those 3 categories. So on the top, there's the top, middle, and the bottom of the top. In the middle, there's the top, middle, and bottom of the middle. And on the bottom, there's the top, middle, and bottom of the bottom. So you have top, middle, and bottom, and each 3 of them have 3, which is the origination of all space, which is the first 9 spheros, and then the malchus, which is just the space itself, which is not being referred to here because that's when it's further congealed. So what this running and returning creates, this endless desire to grasp that which can't be grasped, in spite of the fact that it seems to be endless and it doesn't create any actual change in a person's life, we actually see that this process is the very engraving of the beginning of the Tesha Hechalin, the 9 chambers that are going to create the parts of, and any experience imaginable in this world is contained in those 9. But it's not yet actual space. The Hechalin lav inu nuhurin, and these Hechalin, don't think that they're lights. Don't congeal them into something real yet. Don't make it something graspable. Don't give in to the all too human desire to make an icon and an idol and something graspable and knowable about something. It's still just a Hechal that's ungraspable. Lav inu ruchin, it's not a ruach. Lav inu nishmasin, it's not a neshama. Loy isman dekaima behu. Reus bechol tesha nuhurin dekaima kulhu b'machshavet yuchad minayhu b'chushbin kula. But rather there is nothing that can be defined here rather than the individual whose desire is to come and know all of these 9 lights, these 9 sparks that exists within the mind of the individual, because the mind of the individual is also one of these 9 sparks in the process of the emergence of order from within, that impossibility of grasp and the desire to know and the impossibility to know. The mind itself is part of the process, and everything, kula lemirdav basrayu, everything is running after that place. B'shaisa the b'machshava v'loy mistavkin. In the moment that it stands in the thought, a person is not connected to it. There's no connectivity. V'loy isyadin, and they're not known. V'ilan lan kaimin, and they don't actually exist. Loy bereusa v'loy b'machshava ilah, and they can't be grasped in the highest places of the self because they're beyond the self. These 9 hechalin are the beginning of the process of drawing down the unknowable into the known, which is the secret of what it means to be a human being, to connect chachma, which is the unknown, and bina, which is the known, the moyach and the lave, the light and the darkness, the life and the death, all of it together as one. Tfisin ba v'loy tafsin. It's caught within it and it's not caught within it. We have a grasp of it, but we don't have a grasp of it. It's by way of not having a grasp that we reveal that we have a grasp, because as long as we know that we don't have a grasp, then we have a grasp. When we think we have a grasp, we don't have a grasp. Anything grasped is idolatrous. Anything grasped is already magusham. And if it's magusham, it's mashur. And if it's mashumar, it's clarifiable. The only thing that is ruchani is something that's bilti musag, something that can't be grasped, as the Heilige Magid says. And so it's itvis v'loy itvis. We create this potential space within us that is born out of the endless desire to reach a place of emunah that we know exists, yet we can't draw it down. And slowly but surely we draw down sparks and remainders of that idea. And the ilin kaimin kol razid mehimusa. And it's specifically here that all of the secrets of faith are found. Again, the secret of faith, as Rabbeinu describes, as the Baal Tanya described, because it remains a secret, the Razad Me'emnusa, the impossible connectivity between the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is beyond any possible grasp, and the necessity, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has decided to reveal himself by way of grasp, which is the potential towards limitation that exists within the unlimited. So this is all impossible to grasp. It's the depth of the paradox, and that's why it's referred to as the Raz Demeim Nusa. All of this reveals the secret of faith. V'chol inun nuhurin, and all of these lights, which are not lights and are not graspable, and they're elements of the mind. Meraz demachshava ilah. They're drawn down from the secret of that ascendant thought. Kulya ikrin ein soif. Everything, all of those levels that we've been discussing until now, they're all referred to as infinite. It's only in the place of connectivity in those 9 Hechalin where there's slight hagshama and there's a slight creation of a vessel that can now receive these gradations of infinitude that we begin to refer to it as a light that cannot be known. Up until this point, those lights have shown and they've been arriving, but they have not been known. Not over here with desire and not by thought either. They shine in thought, but they can't be known. And only then, after it shines forth from Chachma, from that place of unknowability, it finds halbasha, it finds concealment, it finds a process of expressing itself through concealment, goy bina, within the heart itself, within understanding of nahir laman de nahir, and it shines forth from that place to those who it shines forth for, which is the drawing down of the moichin of bina into zer anpin. The ayil da bada, and there's unification of one with the other, ad iskalil kula kechada, to the degree that everything is unified as one. Uberazid the karbana, and this is the secret of the korban. This is the secret of what it means that Adam Arishon brought a korban, and that Noach brought a korban, and that Klal Yisrael is perpetually bringing a korban, and that Malach Gabriel brings a korban, and that Karvel Nafshi Giyala, and that our entire lives are one act of korbanos, and the entire Gantz history of Klal Yisrael is one massive act of Mesiras Hashem from the Akedah and onwards, from Lech Lecha and onwards, is one act of Mesiras Nefesh Mamish, and it should be Tekef Umiyad, where it doesn't have to be B'Poyel Mamish anymore, and it could just be Toif Hanira V'Hanigla Lamata Me'asar Tfachim Mamish. But this is the secret of the Korban, the ability to connect that which is known and that which is unknown, the impossible connection between the finite and the infinite, taking something physical and limited, and yet nevertheless attaching to it the highest level of the Ru'usa Deliba, which is the desire that runs as high as far as imaginable, where it encounters the prisud, the machshava, the impossible impasse where the mind is no longer able to grasp the infinitude of it all, yet nevertheless we're moiser nefesh to push forward to create those teishei chalin, to create those 9 chambers which are not chambers, the ois tes, which is the secret of the hidden goodness. This is the secret of the korban. This is the secret of his karvus. This is the secret of coming 1 ounce closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 1 ounce closer to Emunah. Uberazid the karbana, this is the secret of the korban. Kad salik, when it ascends upwards, kulei it kasher da bada, every single level, every part of the system and the gradational concealment levels of this impossible place of not knowing, as it congeals itself slowly but surely into the Seder Ishtalshalos, as we understand it through all of the partsufim and through all of the ilamos and through all of the ilamos of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, and the concealment of the concealment of the concealment of it all. But the secret of the korban is katsalik kula, when it goes up, is kasher dabada, everything, every part of the levels, all of the gradations, all of the innumerable particularities are shown to be revealed as one, v'nahir dabada, and they shine one within the other, kedein kaime kula besliku b'machshava isater be'ein sof, and everything goes upwards together through the power of the thought, which is the arach anpen that is yearning beyond its limit towards that secret of malchus de'ein sof, which is the secret of ani Hashem Elokechem, of the reish lo asyada, and the malchus agnuz. And then there's a lofty light, the machshava ilah, the chachma that comes back down through this mesiras nefesh from below to above. It draws light down again, and it's an addition of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where we draw down new moichin. And from that place, hahu nihiru the isnahir minei machshava ilah, and there's the ascendant thought that descends down, ikre ein soif. It's referred to as ein soif. Umine ishtachich v'kaima v'nahir leman de nahir v'alda kulam kayim. And through that ascent from below to above, and a drawing down from above to below, a quintessential drop, so to speak, of that impossible infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that breaks through the barrier of the infinite and the finite and expresses itself within the redifut de machshava, somehow, some way, that becomes the sustenance and the infinitude of it all. That is the illumination of Emunah that is found at any level and that gives sustenance to all places. It's the 10th which makes space for the 9. Praiseworthy are the tzaddikim in this world and in the world to come. And when Rabbi Shimon says Alma Asi, we're talking about that tfuna again, the river of life that is perpetually flowing into our minds from beyond us, which means the unknowability and the comfort of unknowability, and the lo yodea klum that draws forth the healing water of emuna kol zos, the emuna kol zos, that Chabakuk came, ba Chabakuk v'hi'imid al omid achad, that Chabakuk, which is the gematria of gevura, which is an neshama of an akeva, which is the element of the tzimtzum, Chabakuk came along and said there is only one thing necessary, and that is the light of emuna. Emunah, and it's through Emunah, through the Malchus of Emunah, that it sends upwards to the Keser, and it draws down the light of Reish L'Osyada, Lamata, Lamata, Lamata Mesar Tfachim, to be mamtik all difficulty, to draw Yeshua of Erachamim, and the secret of Bahadein Safra Yafkin Megalusa Barachamim, that through this book you'll be redeemed from exile with compassion, Be'ezras Hashem.